All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know Thursdays can be a little busy, and I want to respect everyone's time today. I'd like to welcome everyone to the AI for Recreation Professionals webinar. For those who may not know me, my name is Alex Cadet. I am the outreach consultant with Recreation Resources Service, and I will be serving as your host today. Um, as we know, AI isn't going anywhere, and I felt this webinar was great to really show how AI or artificial intelligence can improve marketing campaigns, RFPs, and proposal writing, as well as overall department efficiency. Quick housekeeping notes, real quick, before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to drop those in the chat as I'll be monitoring that. And I also encourage you to engage and share insights as well. Um, Lauren McAlexander is a digital marketing strategist who helps organizations improve their marketing impact. I've had the pleasure of knowing Lauren since high school. I won't even say the years and age myself right now, but she's doing great things down in South Carolina, and I feel like she is the perfect speaker for today. So without further ado, Lauren McAlexander.
Thank you, Alex. Like Alex said, I have the chat pulled up too, so I can kind of keep an eye on that. I will be sharing the presentation with Alex afterwards so he can distribute that out to you all. So don't feel like you need to take notes the whole time. I also have a PDF that I will reference later in the presentation that I'll be sharing with you as well. So please, I welcome questions. I will try to get through the presentation part of this as quickly as possible just so we can have questions because I know there may be a lot. So AI, like Alex said, is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's growing at a rapid pace. And so the purpose of this presentation is really to figure out how can we use it, how can we use it effectively and ethically. I, oh, too far. So like Alex said, I am Lauren. I was born and raised in Huntersville, which is how Alex and I know each other from grade school. My parents still live in Connolly Springs. My sister lives in Boone. My grandparents live in Locust and Pofftown. So North Carolina is a big part of who I am, and I'm really honored to be here speaking with you all today. Um, I went to the University of South Carolina, graduated with a degree in journalism and mass communications. I've been at ADCO for 8 years and I was named partner 2 summers ago. I am the digital marketing strategist. We actually just changed my title yesterday to lead strategist because I really wear a lot of hats. Um, by no means am I the expert of all experts on AI, but I do work on a very small team. We're an agency of five as far as our core team. We execute hundreds of $1,000 budgets every single year in media buying, online, digital, and we all do it together. So we have really leaned into AI to streamline our processes and get things done quicker than we ever have been able to. Again, small team, lots of work coming in, great problem to have, but how do we do that effectively? So that's what I'm going to talk with you all about today, and hopefully give you guys some tangible examples of what you can do, using this in your own office. So what I heard when I was doing a little bit of research about Parks and Rec marketing, you guys wear a lot of hats. You're the director and the marketer. You may have one staff member, you may have no staff members, you might have a handful, you may have some interns. But at the end of the day, there's so many things that have to get done, and marketing has grown so much. It's not just maintaining a website, it's brochures and collateral, it's email marketing, it's social media marketing, it's, if you have the budget for it, community canvassing and billboards, TV, anything of the sorts. So, how can we make the most of your time and resources while also having successful programs within your individual departments? Um, I can't really see everyone on the screen, but I'm guessing maybe a few of y'all have used AI before. Maybe some of y'all haven't even bothered touching AI. So I'm just going to do a brief overview about what AI is. It is a tool. It is not going to replace you. It cannot replace you. You all are in the positions that you're in because you are qualified and talented and experienced. At the end of the day, AI is still just a computer. It's still just a robot, if you will. Um, so, it can't replace the trust that your community has in you. It cannot replace the relationships you have, and it can't replace the knowledge that you have. It can write words. It cannot build a community. And I think that that's really the foundation of what this presentation is about. As I said in the beginning, it's about how we can use AI effectively, but also ethically. So before AI, we had to kind of guess what might work. We spent hours and hours, generating RFPs or proposals or brochures, doing everything by hand essentially. With AI, we can use it to see what works, and we can do that a lot faster. We can get good drafts in half the time. One of the very first, reasons I used AI was to write budgets. We get all kinds of requests. We're a full service marketing agency, so some people want a website. Some people have $100,000 and they don't know what they want. They just want me to come up with something. And I was able to use AI to generate a budget in about a day, whereas before this would take me almost a week just to gather all my timelines, my structures, my tactics, put it all in a way that makes sense. So that's the biggest thing that I use is it's a big time saver. So what it can and can't do, it can help you save time and handle repetitive tasks. It helps with brainstorming and outlines. It can analyze data, read uploads, compare things to each other. And as I said, it can't really replace your relationships that you have with your community. It can't grasp that emotional understanding of what it means to serve the state of North Carolina, if you will. And it can't tell your story for you. We do have tools to make it more, or we have ways to make it more human. And I'm going to go over that as well. So, one of the biggest things to keep in mind when using AI, do not trust it fully. Do not type something into ChatGPT, take whatever it spits out, copy and paste it in an email and click send. That is one of the quickest ways to find yourself in hot water because it could get things wrong. It can get your tone wrong. It can say things incorrectly. Sometimes it has a great output, but other times you really need to make sure that you are checking to make sure it's giving you what you need. Alex actually shared with me, someone had commented on the Facebook page about RFP writing, and she, I guess, was someone who reviews those RFPs, and she was saying that the AI generated responses have become very convoluted and they don't always answer the questions and requirements in the RFPs. And so that's a great example of why you should always trust but verify. So now we're going to get into a few examples of how you all can use AI, and I'm sure you all do way more than, just the five things that I've kind of pinpointed here, but I tried to get a broad spectrum of things that I think you all might do, but of course we can always open up for discussion at the end to talk about a few other examples. So um, I was telling a friend the other day, AI can do anything you want. It's really just in how you prompt it to kind of get where you need. So if you're just getting started with AI or you're really trying to integrate it into your processes and procedures, really sit down and say, okay, what can I use my time and energy for versus where can I really use the support to just kind of crank some things out. Everything's always equal of importance. However, you have to prioritize. If you have 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours in a working day, and you have 20 hours with work to get done, where can AI step in and help expedite some of that? So, some examples that I have here, identifying your target audience for summer camps, brainstorming seasonal campaign ideas, creating marketing calendars. I put 3 month here just, as an easy intro attainable goal. You can do a 12-month marketing calendar if you have everything planned out for 12 months. Um, Drafting your registration for events that you all are hosting, and again, writing RFPs. RFPs, budgets, anything that is just one of those big tasks that you just dread doing because it's going to be 25 pages long and it's going to take all your time and energy. That is really where I encourage you to dabble with AI and see how it can help you. So I'm going to try and stop sharing my presentation real quick and share this PDF with you. And again, like I said, I'm going to share this afterwards as well. But I want to show you kind of the prompt that I used and how um, oops, and how you can use it to generate some content for your stuff. So I used a summer camp example. So I went to the um, Raleigh Parks and Rec, and I just found the summer program brochure, and you can see my prompt here. I uploaded the PDF, which is super helpful. Always give AI as much copy content etc as you can. So I updated the PDF and I instructed it, I want to create a campaign for the Dynamite Days of Summer. Here's the ages, and then I just copied the paste from inside the brochure. I said, can you outline target audiences, generate 3 campaign themes, build a 6 week promo calendar, and draft copy for social, website, and email? And within about 5 minutes, I had all of this stuff. I had my target audiences. I had some social media posts. I had a schedule that I could share with my team. I could say, okay, Sarah, you're going to handle the social media. Tom, you're going to handle the e-blast. And then it's all basically right here. So it really takes the heavy lift out of generating something. The Raleigh Parks and Rec brochure that I was looking at had, 50 to 100 summer camps. So how on earth would you generate, you know, content for all that? You can also, say in this PDF, hey, I have this PDF, please pull out all the events or all the summer camps for students aged 4 to 6. And then it can pull all those together so that aren't just promoting the Dynamite Days of Summer, you're promoting, young pre-K age summer camps. So um, again, that was a lot of the prompting is where that becomes very important so that it knows what to pull. Second example I had was budget communication. So, year to year, you're working on your fiscal year budget. You have your budget hearing meetings. You need to propose, how you're going to break down, these costs versus these costs. So you can upload last year's budget summary. You can ask AI to create a public facing summary, a council presentation, anything that you might think. I don't do budgets, so there may be other things that may be important or that aren't important at all in this, but it starts creating a system. And I'm going to talk a little bit about reusable prompts here in a second. Another example, content creation, which is kind of what I just showed you. That was more for an online campaign, but you can also do a flyer language, an FAQ sheet. If you need a billboard design, I just need a quick snazzy 3 word billboard to, summarize, why you should come to summer camps, anything like that. Just quick content creation. Our agency uses it a lot for content creation. Again, we have, 50 some clients, a lot on social media, and having to do, 5 to 10 social media posts for each one each month can become, a very daunting task. And now this allows us to push it through a lot quicker. Measuring impact. This is also a really, really helpful tool at the end of the year if you're doing an annual report or just an internal, staff overview of, how things went, how did they not go. Any data that you have collected throughout the year, whether that be admissions to parks, admissions to events, donations, anything that you can track year to year, you can upload those things. And you can ask it, like, what patterns do you see? Do you see a 10% increase year over year? Did we see a 10% decrease? What might that be attributed to? And the last example I have here is RFP writing. So again, one of the big things is being able to upload and give AI all the information that it needs. You cannot just log on and say, help me write an RFP for XYZ. It needs to have the background information. It needs to understand why you're doing this, what the goal is, and what the RFP's expectations are as well, the issuing agency. So you can ask AI to identify conflicting instructions, flag unclear expectations, align questions with evaluation criteria, rewrite things to make sure it's in line. And then you can go back afterwards. So even when you're done with your RFP and you're getting ready to send it off, you can upload both the request for proposal and your proposal itself and say, can you compare these two, see what I'm missing? Was I out of line in this section, or do I need to, beef up this section, and really get kind of a comparison to make sure you're giving them what they're asking for. So a few of these things I have talked about. I don't know how many of you have paid subscriptions to AI, but if you are able to include that in your budget for a line item, I highly encourage you to, for quite a few reasons. Having a corporate or business account allows you a little bit more privacy. AI is user generated, so it learns based off what we are doing and how we are interacting with it. Um, the same way Google has for all these years, if you've ever dealt with Google search campaigns or anything, it's all based off user behavior. And so AI is the same way. So when you pay for the subscription, it actually puts up kind of a wall of privacy between you and the AI learning model, to protect your intellectual property a little bit. There's some things that you may not be permitted to uploading, and you can, change the numbers a little bit. If you don't feel comfortable, sharing like a whole budget or something, you can put fake numbers in there just to get an evaluation of a breakdown, things like that. But when you pay for an AI subscription, it kind of opens the door to a little bit more personal experience. So you're able to save your conversations. So for us at our agency, we have threads for each client, so that each time I have, one of the examples I have in here is a military museum here in South Carolina that I work with. So I go back to that thread every single time. And over the past 6 months, it's really learned the voice of the museum. It learns, the proclivities of, you can't say this, you can say this. We're not allowed to, use this. Or we had a client one time who hated conjunctions. Everything had to be it is or that is, not it's and that's. And so little things like that you can kind of save in the language model, so that it just keeps up with that as you go on. So you can have different threads for summer camps, events, budgets, internal marketing, anything like that. It also allows you to upload documents, which I've talked about being very important when it comes to having guidance and guidelines, and just relevant information for the AI to be able to spit back out what you're needing. And then, like I said, you can go back to your old prompts and reuse them. They don't expire or go away when you close out your browser. So turning, your AI into a repeatable system. If you continue to use this the way that it is intended, this allows you to save even more time in the long run. So, for example, you have a press release template. Every time you need a press release, you go back to that template and everything is there the way you need it. Like I just, I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit now, but same tone of voice, same structure that you need, has, your department's, personality behind it. Same thing with social media. If you don't want to use emojis, you can make sure to make that very clear. If you need it to be, super, super short, you can include that as well. If you need it to have alt text for ADA compliance, you can make sure that that is notated so that every single time you ask for a social media campaign, it gives you that board report summary, all these things. It makes it so that you are not starting from scratch every single time. So here's an example. Well, this is not an example, it's on the next slide of what I mean when I say it can like save your voice. So you can upload your past, because you don't need to start new today. You can use content you've created over the past however many months, years, etc. But you can upload your past newsletters. You can send it to your website. You can any emails that you've sent out. Copy and paste them, throw them in there. Then you can ask AI to analyze the tone and writing style and create a brand voice summary. So then what you do when it says save this as a reusable instruction, you save a Word doc on your desktop called, XXX department brand voice summary. So then the next time you have a task, so this is an example of my military museum here. I say, write a press release for the military museum using the same tone and voice we established from the website. The voice profile is below, and I just copy and paste it in there. And so every single time it knows this is what I need to do. This is the goal. This is the tone and voice, and these are the things that I need to touch on. So that way, when it spits back out the press release, the website copy, the social media, it hits all of these things that I've already worked to refine. So what are the next steps for you and your team? If you do nothing else, just keep practicing. It's kind of like going to the gym in the new year. It takes 30 days to create a habit. So anything that you find yourself doing day to day and you're like, oh, I can do this like the back of my hand. Well, try putting that in AI to see what it spits out, just to start familiarizing yourself with it. Because if you try to take something completely new to you and it's new to AI, well, then you might find yourself with a little bit of unsureness. You might not feel as confident in the answers, but if it's something that you do day in and day out and you know exactly what that output needs to be, you can push that in there and make sure that it's giving you what you need. Sorry, I just saw Sarah's question about mentioning the AI tool you use for the marketing plan. So I for the most part, use ChatGPT. We are actually starting to look at Claude as well. Just different agencies are requiring different things, as I'm sure you all know. So to this point, a great example of that is I had to write a landing page yesterday for the business school here in Columbia, and I gave it the content that I got from the director of the business school. And I said, please write a landing page to match this existing page that I've already done with this example. And I put the exact same prompt into ChatGPT and Claude. And then I compared the two outputs to see what felt a little bit more in line with the tone and voice. And what we are seeing is Claude has a little bit more of a personable language. So whereas ChatGPT, the subhead was like 3 sentences long, it was a little fluffy, it was a little, it sounded like they were kind of BSing the reader. Claude was much more concise. So definitely don't feel like you have to stick to one. If you're, I think ChatGPT is pretty popular as far as conversations go, and that's where a lot of people start. And I love ChatGPT. I was very resistant to move over to Claude. But we all have to try different things. So moving forward, like I said, just start small. If you've never used AI before, or you really don't know how to integrate this into your system, don't think you're gonna, start tomorrow and have your whole, systems, controlled by AI. Just one thing at a time, just to kind of see where it can help you the best. Because everyone's positions here are different. So there's no real clear answer of like, okay, you need to start doing it for social media today because you might not all work in social media. So Perfect. 30 minutes for the presentation, which leaves us a little bit extra time for questions. So I would love to hear from all of you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that I can see you. But I'm going to open it up for questions now. Alex, if you wouldn't mind helping me
I
like field
gotcha.
them, perfect.
Sarah has a question. Have you ever used it, I guess use the AI tool for design visual elements?
So we have not used it for the actual design of visuals. We have a creative director who he has been in the industry for 35 years, and I don't think he's ready to pass the buck to AI when it comes to, his talents. But we do use it for idea generating. So say for example, we're creating a annual report and we say, okay, this is the client, this is, the theme of the annual report. What would be a good idea of, what a cover would look like, or what's a theme we can weave throughout the annual report? And it'll give us some examples. And then we pass that on to the creative director to kind of build off of, but it has not solely designed visual elements for us. That being said, a lot of platforms that people use every single day, like Canva, for example, they also are having AI. Everyone's, tapping into AI one way or another. So they also are having a little bit of like generate this or generate that. And I haven't found it to be super accurate to what I want, but that's also because I have a graphic background, and so I'm a little bit more picky when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't see any other question. Any other questions y'all have so far? I know some departments are using them for operational day to day as far as scheduling and mapping out certain things for the department. But we have a question for Jennifer. Would you have a list of prompts for Parks and Recreation?
I do not currently have a list of prompts, but I'm happy to kind of like, look and see what I can find to pass on to Alex afterwards, along with the other things that I have. If anyone has any like day-to-day struggles that they think would be helpful, if you could drop those in the chat too, so I can kind of, see how we can expand that. Um, that would be really helpful.
All right. And Sarah has, do you think AI would successfully generate a Gantt chart and other project management tools for specific projects?
It's a good question. Um, I think AI can successfully generate a lot of things. It just is going to require a little hand-holding as far as how that would work for you and what your needs are. So, if you already have a Gantt chart that you could like upload as an example, that would be ideal, even if it's not yours, that you've created, assuming you are wanting it to create it for you, but one you could find on the internet, right? So, you find an example of one that's done really, really well, and then you give it the information for your team, and then you upload both of them, and then it would generate it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Emily. Oh, I see. Emily has, what is the typical range for subscriptions? Has anyone here successfully gotten their CM or council on board if it required a budget amendment, approval, etc.? So I guess that's for everyone in the chat um, that has, gotten a subscription with AI before. If anyone
The
wants
the
to
first
answer.
question you have there, Emily, I think we pay like I want to say it's like $50 a month, and I'm sure there's an annual. They probably break it down by monthly or annual based off, I know if you have like a P card or something, they don't want like recurring charges and stuff. But obviously the second question would be for the rest of the folks.
All right, let me see where we're at. Okay. I asked ChatGPT. Oh, this is from Robert. I asked ChatGPT to create this question. What happens to the data and documents we upload to AI systems? How is it stored, used, or learned from, and what privacy concerns should people be aware of? So I guess that's just what was the answer to that, Robert? Um, yeah,
Yeah.
Cindy, I think answered Emily's question above. So,
Yeah, our county attorneys have legal concerns. Yeah, so one of the UGUs here in Columbia that we work with, they aren't permitted at all to use AI right now. They're a state-funded agency, and so I don't know, how it's being handled state to state. But as from the top down, as people are starting to use AI, I imagine that's going to open up a little bit more. And that's also one of the reasons we are looking at Claude. We are obviously a private entity. We can do whatever we want, but uh, now that the federal government is getting involved in using AI, these individual ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all those people, they are now trying to keep up with the protocols and the rules. So before the big question was the privacy and, how things are being stored. So now I know Anthropic, I think is who owns Claude. They're trying to push out some more protections just to appease the concern of the government.
all right. Wendell had this technology is continuing to improve. How do we stay current to the improvements?
So this is where, the good old Google machine comes in handy and, reading articles. Shelley Palmer is one that talks on AI a lot. I have a really hard time finding the time to read. I get like the morning newsletters of things. I have a really hard time finding the time to just read up on those things, but just making a conscious effort to just kind of spend 30 minutes each day if you can, same way you would your regular news headlines, staying informed with your local news. You just do the same thing for AI. Finding something that might be relevant to you, an email subscription or something that is sending updates as they become available. The advertising and marketing industry has a really heavy finger on the pulse of this. So, subscribing to newsletters there. And then just Googling, can AI help me with blah, 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 and then seeing if there's been some talk about stuff like that. But I agree, it is moving at the speed of light. When I started in this industry, social media was like small potatoes, and now everyone has social media, and that's all everyone ever talks about is how to use social media. So, things are just going to grow and shrink as, the trends come and go. Sarah, so to your point, your understanding is that you give up all right to the information. So, when for us at our agency with our ChatGPT subscription, it specifically says there is like a disclaimer that says it will not use our content for learning. So, to an extent, I'm sure there is some information about like what we are asking, if that makes sense. So it might, keep up with the fact that we're asking about budget creation or social media posts. But any uploads and stuff, it does not use or share. But again, it is all still, money is a motivator here, and you have to have a little bit of trust in the system with a little healthy distrust, and so being mindful of what you are uploading. Because the internet is forever, they always say. So
We have one more from Sarah. Have you been able to measure the accuracy of the target audiences, marketing tactics, etc., to confirm that the ones AI told you actually were good and useful?
Mhm. Yes, that is a great question. So that is something that we really take to heart as a team, and that I think was in one of my first slides of, kind of trust but verify and starting small. That's why you shouldn't dive your whole efforts into AI, because you want to make sure you're doing a little bit out of the time to make sure you're getting accurate and valuable information. So, for example, if we're running a online digital campaign for this, we actually did this the other week for an HBCU here in South Carolina, and so it came back out with some examples of where the target audience was, and one of the suggestions was a NASCAR race. And so we kind of like talked about that. We were like, we don't really know that the audience is going to be at NASCAR. So let's take that out. And then we go back to ChatGPT and say, hey, don't think that students who are interested in HBCUs are necessarily going to be flocking to the NASCAR race. Like, why did you? And this is the thing, you can question ChatGPT. Why did you suggest that? What were your sources? And then have it explain itself. And then usually it'll kind of backtrack, which is a little frustrating, but it is important to, again, you guys are in your positions because you are, skilled, talented, smart individuals. And so knowing that, you're a little bit smarter than a robot, if you will, AI is not necessarily up to date, with current events. If something happened, while we were on this call, and then I try to pull up ChatGPT and ask a question, it might not know that that has happened, because it's all generated based off of what is available to it. Um, so always taking that moment to step back and evaluate. And then again, don't be afraid to question it. What was your source? Why did you not suggest this? Why did you suggest this? I don't want, any more NASCAR related events for this audience.
We have any more questions in the chat?
And again, if anyone has any pain points or concerns within your individual department, if you can drop that in the chat so that afterwards I can provide a list of prompts for Alex that might be helpful to you all.
Yeah, one more question. I noticed you say you'd ask AI to please do curious, well, please do X. Curious if you think one gets better results if we use, excuse me, the same niceties as we would in the conversation with a live person.
Yeah, that's probably just a bad habit. But I always think like if the robots are going to take over, they're not going to take me because I'm polite. Um, I don't think that it necessarily matters. I think that, you can argue with it, you can question it. Because I do say please, but I also ask it, why did you give me that answer? I'm not pleased with that answer. I'm very honest with it, if you will. Um, I saw a video the other day of someone who was using ChatGPT voice. So they were talking like a phone conversation, and they were kind of, y'all might have seen it. It was kind of trending on social media. They said, I need to take my car to the car wash and it's 10 meters away. Should I walk or drive? And ChatGPT came back. I don't know if it was ChatGPT. The AI came back and said, oh, it's a beautiful day outside. It's, 80 degrees. You should walk. But they were trying to take their car to the car wash. And so the user was kind of trying to bait this robot into saying to correcting itself, if you will. Um, and it was just a very funny interaction because the user was not necessarily, being super super friendly or, whatever, and then you could hear the voice almost getting a little irritated, but it eventually corrected itself. So long story short, no, I don't think it matters how you talk to it. If you want to be curt and blunt and just say do this, then by all means go for it. I just probably have a really bad habit of I don't say ma'am or sir, but I do say please. So
I've caught
and I do
myself saying
say
please a couple times too, so.
yeah. Love it. Great questions.
Uh, any more questions? Oh, we got Emily. I seem to have trouble with AI forgetting some of my original instructions once we get further into tweaking a result. Does a subscription help AI remember those things, or is this common?
I do think the subscription helps as it pertains to like going days and weeks later. However, sometimes within the conversation itself, over the course of 10, 15, 20 minutes, that has also happened to me where I've had to go back and say, remember, I asked you not to do X, Y, Z, and now you're telling me, and it'll say, oh, you're so right. That's my mistake. I'm sorry. But that also goes back to the whole, you're always going to be smarter than this robot and trusting but verifying the content that it points out. And I will say that, having the subscription and creating those things like the tone and voice model helps alleviate a lot of that. If you're just jumping in every single time and kind of starting fresh, then you are going to have more of those, road bumps, if you will. Whereas being able to store those things is really going to help you um, give it a little bit more clear direction. Because the thing is too, when you give it the prompt of, okay, save this as a um, XYZ, a proposal template, a budget template, a tone and voice model, it's giving you what it wants back. So when you save it and then you reuse it again in a few days, you're already giving it what it wants, rather than giving it what you think you need to be giving it.
Real quick, shameless plug right now. We have our Recreating Connections Recreation Resource Service podcast, and I know this is a hot topic right now, so we'll be continuing throughout the year to have um AI topics on for different episodes and stuff like that. If you have any particular questions that we can ask our guests that we have on the podcast, feel free. I just put my email in the chat. Feel free to send me any questions that you have, and we'll get those answered. And feel free to follow us on Spotify for more episodes. So, yep.
And that too, that podcast is really going to be specific to y'all's industry. So, um, as someone asked earlier, how do you stay up to breast? Subscribe to Alex's podcast so that
There you go.
you can get any, relevant topics as it relates to Parks and Recs. And yes, Emily, you are correct. You're not going to lose your job. You can't replace humans. I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of what makes the world go round is, our care for our jobs and our community and what we do. So it has been a great resource for us here at ADCO as far as, getting things done a lot quicker. But it's never going to be able to replace, the talents and the skills we've obtained over the years.
Any questions? Any last questions before we wrap up? All
I'm
right.
gonna
Oh,
share.
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm going to share my screen one more time so that you guys can see my contact information. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, email me, ask me questions, whatever you need. I am always happy to be a resource for you all. I like talking to people. I like helping people. So feel free to connect with me, send me an email. Like I said, I'm going to share this presentation as well as the PDF with the prompt in it with Alex, and then I will work on some prompts that you all can use as well that might be helpful to you.
Yeah, Lauren, this was awesome. We appreciate having you today. And like she said, get in contact with her if you have any further questions. So thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Y'all take care.